Please welcome James Freedman, the director of the film. It's on. Director, producer, writer, voice. You did it all. You narrated. Where did this start for you?
I had always been a fan of Charles Grodin. My mother was a big fan, gave me his books to read. I was very fortunate when I was a kid to see him on Broadway with Ellen Burstyn same time next year. Still to this day, one of the greatest nights I've ever had in the theater. And then I started reading about his social justice work. And I look for subjects that were very successful in their careers and then had almost this supermensch quality about them. When I read that, I said, I have to share this guy's story. It's remarkable what he did.
And when did this all start? When did you start working on the film?
A few months after he passed away, I reached out to his wife to try and get the rights, and she asked to see my film. So I showed her my first film, Glickman, and she liked it. And then she said, "But do you have another film?" And I said, "Yes." And I showed her Carl Laemmle, which showed at this theater. And she said, "You can have the rights." And then a couple of weeks later, 7 giant boxes of Charles' archives appeared at my house. And it was his scrapbooks, his photographs. He had a videographer, so there were videos, his notes, his framed photos. It was unbelievable. It was the movie, was there. I had to just pull it out. And then I started interviewing people, and in that regard, a couple of people are here from the film. Randy Credico is here. And one of the women Chuck got out of prison, Elaine Bartlett. Would you and your family please stand up? Her family's all over. Can we get a microphone for her for 1 second? Can you get her a microphone? Elaine, I have to ask you this question. I asked it of June Benson, who was one of the women in Washington screening, and in Los Angeles a few weeks ago of Jan Warren. Having lived through this, and now having just seen the film, what's going on in your mind right now? Face the audience.
Joy. And I'm honored, and I'm glad that he did this film on him, because believe me, this man saved a lot of people's lives. As you see, my family's here, and I've been home 25 years, and we're still struggling with issues and stuff from me being incarcerated. It's hard, and when you come home, you try to make up for not being there, but the reality is you can never get them years back. The pain could never be lost. And I lost a lot of family members. I lost my mother. I lost my siblings. Right now, it's just me and my brother left out of 7. And a bunch of grandkids. And I have 2 great-grands now that I'm very proud to be here. So legacies are very important. And his legacy is very important. And the name that you picked for this fits him to a T. Chuck, we love you. And you'll never be forgotten.
Thank you very much, Elaine, and thank you for coming. I also wanted to thank the Manhattan Jewish Film Festival for putting on the screening. I love this theater. I have a real emotional feeling for this theater, and thanks for doing that, Isaac.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing this with our community. That I think this fits so well. I mean, both cinematically and in terms of the message of the film and the work. And one of the things I really like about this film is, I watched the audience here today. They spent the first half laughing and possibly the second half crying. Is that how you kind of put it together?
It's interesting you say that, because when I did a rough cut for some director and writer friends, it's very tricky. They said, well, how long is the prison section? I said, I'm thinking of doing 15, 20 minutes. They go, that's way too long. And they hadn't seen the film yet. They said, people just want to see the stuff that makes them laugh. They want to see the Steve Martin and De Niro and Martin Short and all that. And I understood what they were saying and about the commerciality of the film and things like that. But I realized if you ask Charles Grodin what did he want to be known for at the end of his life, he would not say Midnight Run. He would not say The Heartbreak Kid. He would say his social justice work and changing the Rockefeller drug laws. And so I said, there's no point in making this film if I don't really dig into how he did this, why he did this, and the results of what he did, because it's not perfect. He didn't get exactly what he wanted, but when the Rockefeller drug laws were reformed, as it says in the film, many people did not go to prison like Elaine and June Benson and Jan Warren would have had to do. And all those thousands of people that don't even know Charles Grodin's name, he's responsible for keeping them out of prison. I mean, remarkable. So I knew I had to spend time on that part. And then once I did, I looked at it almost like a thriller of the obstacles he had to overcome and the way he used celebrity, because it's very different than how most people use celebrity. Most people are out, they want to be seen by the TV cameras on a picket line, and he said, you don't want me picketing the governor's office, you want me in the governor's office. And he knew what he was doing, and it took a toll on his life too, and without question. And some people said, well, you're going to put that in about his drinking and stuff like that. And I said, if I don't put that in, it's like he's not human. He's like some saint that this didn't affect him. I said, to me, that makes him more of a hero.
And I was thinking how important it is for this film to be seen by every celebrity out there that is, not using their power for good, and I'm thinking that what matters is to promote the, I don't know, whatever new blockbuster's coming out, when there's so many important impacts that, when you have that status and especially today when you have direct reach to a community, to be able to use it for good is so crucial. And Chuck, if I may call him that, I'm clearly understood exactly what he was doing and how he could use that. In your research, did anything surprise you?
The one thing was the effect his father's death had on him. And I actually believe Chuck was a workaholic. When his wife Alyssa told me when they first started going to dinner parties or in a restaurant, he would just get up and leave after 90 minutes. And that was it. He wanted to write something, or he'd go in another room and read a book or something. He had a limit, and that was it. He didn't want to go past that. And I said to her, I believe, and she confirmed this, that much of his social justice work, he was never lazy. And he wrote all the time. And you saw he directed hit plays, he acted, he produced, he did it all. I think he just didn't want to work in his father's store after school. He wanted to play ball like most kids. And I think that his father dying before they had a rapprochement, as Alyssa says, I think it affected him so deeply that he spent much of the rest of his life trying to show his father, I have worth. I'm not lazy. I'm not a lazy bum. I care about people. And I really think it motivated him, and I didn't know anything about that. So that's what I would say I was most surprised by.
And I think it shows his character in terms of he continued to. I think he lived his father's essence in terms of being somebody who worked really hard and knew that things don't just come easy, and he learned that. The research itself. I mean, you mentioned that his wife, as the family, sent boxes of all the material. Is that all you needed for the film?
No, that's
because it seems like you have a lot of material there from like small things like his what was it, like his taxi driving medallion to interviews with him on Letterman or wherever.
Yeah, there's a lot of material. I had 100 hours of material, and you have to get it down to 90 minutes roughly is what it felt. And I lost my train of thought, but I was talking about, what was your question again? I'll say.
In terms of the research that you had to do beyond.
Yes. So I'm a research nut. I don't hire a research assistant. I do it all myself, and I work late at night. And I was trying to get footage to Lovers and Other Strangers. And sometimes the Tony Awards, they have footage of some plays, but this was before they started recording the plays. There was no footage of Lovers and Other Strangers. And I said, I have to find this. How do you find this footage? So I went through the playbill. He had the original playbill. I went through every person's name, no matter how small. I just kept Googling him. And I came across the guy who played the son of Richard Castellano in that clip with, you guys aren't happy? No, that clip. And it was this comedian. And I Googled him, and I see he's on the Ed Sullivan Show. Well, the Ed Sullivan Show was where Broadway is, and he would often have Broadway shows do a scene on his TV show, for those who don't remember. So it's 2 a.m, and I'm watching this thing, and I watch the guy do the comedic thing, and I'm disappointed again. I couldn't find it. And then the thing kept playing, and I was writing a note on something, and all of a sudden, Ed Sullivan introduces a scene to Lovers and Other Strangers. So I start screaming, and I wake up my wife, and my wife said, Jimmy, is everything all right? Is everything all right? And I said, everything's great. Look what I found. She says, tell me in the morning. I'm going back to bed.
I'm so glad that we have here tonight, some of the people that Charles directly impacted with his social justice work. And I was wondering how the reactions have been, and have you been taking it around to the people who understood the value of his work?
It's really been so well received. I couldn't ask for anything more. The audiences have just embraced the film, embraced him. It's a privilege to tell a man like this a story, and to see audiences embrace it. And, I get offered occasionally true crime stuff, and I don't want to spend 2 or 3 years of my life on that. I would rather, I love telling stories about people you don't quite know what they did. And his whole thing was, one person did this, and anybody can do this, and I love sharing those kind of stories, and I'm very proud that I could share his story.
And thank you for these stories about really people who are mensches, who are doing, saving one person, and through that saving a whole world. And we've seen these stories through your work before. I'll ask one more question, then we'll open it to questions from the audience. I have to ask about the interviewees. You have there amazing people from start to finish, from all different walks of life. How easy was it? Was everybody excited to come on board?
But Alyssa Grodin helped me with a handful of like Robert De Niro and Steve Martin. And Martin Short I cold called, and he loved Chuck, and he said, I'd love to do it. And a lot of these people, were thrilled by mentioning Charles Grodin. They wanted to be a part of this. Ellen Burstyn reached out to me. I have to tell a quick Ellen Burstyn story. So we're talking, and she tells me this story. People say, what do you have to leave out of the film? Well, a lot of his movie clips and a lot of his talk show clips, because they take too long to set up, and you just can't. You have to have something quick. So she told me the story that he was on the Tonight Show, and David Steinberg was guest hosting, and he had not been cast in the movie version of Same Time Next Year. Ellen Burstyn was in it, but Alan Alda, his friend, got the leading role. So he's on the Tonight Show with David Steinberg, and in the pre-interview, they ask him what he wants to talk about, and he tells the pre-interview people at the Carson Show, have them ask me about not being cast in Same Time Next Year. So David Steinberg innocently comes out of commercial and asks Chuck about, I understand you weren't cast in Same Time Next Year, the movie version. And Chuck plays it completely straight, as if he's heard this for the first time. And he goes, what are you talking about? What do you mean? I wasn't cast? I was terrific in that film. Who did they cast? He goes, Alan Alda. Well, he's a friend of mine, but I can't handle what I was doing. What are you doing? Ellen Burstyn told me she was at home in her living room laughing her ass off at that. She said, that's Chuck.
Amazing. I'd love to open it up to the audience. We'll pass the microphone around, and I see some hands up already.
Hey there.
Hey, Arnie.
Hey. So, two things. One, congratulations. It's a great film.
Thank you very much.
Secondly, one of the things that the film brings out that I had no idea of, and I thought the film treated this so evocatively, that it got to me, was this is a really sensitive guy, willing to go on TV and be hated for the laugh. It takes a lot of courage to do something like that, and I thought the film really brought that out in a beautiful way, and so just wanted to mention that and say congratulations again.
Thank you. Two things. This is a college friend I have not seen in 50 years. And we both look exactly the same. It's amazing. I'll tell you a quick Alan Arkin story that he told me. Chuck lived near Alan Arkin for like 5-6 year period. And he gets a call from Alan Arkin, and he says, Alan, I must come up. I have something very important I have to tell you. Okay, come on up. And he comes up, and Chuck plays with Alan Arkin's sons for like an hour, 2 hours, and Alan Arkin's sitting there waiting. What is this important thing you have to talk about? And he says, Chuck, what is it? What is it? Come on, we need to take a walk. And he takes a walk, and Chuck says, I need to borrow $20. And Alan Arkin's looking at him, said, what? He says, I need to borrow $20. And Alan Arkin sees Chuck break out laughing. He goes, what are you laughing about? He says, if you could see your face when I asked you for $20, he said, you drove an hour to my house, played with my kids for another hour, waited another hour to tell me this just to see the look on my face? He goes, yes. And that's what he would do. He just loved to do that. He said he was so dry and deadpan sometimes people didn't know he was kidding. You know, I spoke to Warren Beatty, and Warren Beatty said, Warren Beatty didn't know that at the time Chuck was dating his sister, Shirley MacLaine, and Warren Beatty didn't know anything about it, you know.
I was wondering, hi, sorry, all the way at the top.
No, I can see.
I was wondering, what is something that you left out that you fought over in your head, like, oh, I didn't want to leave this out, but it's just too long?
There were so many things. There was one thing where he helped this woman who's in the film. She was kind of lost in her life, and he said she was a receptionist at his agency, and his agent was always putting him on hold. So he said, rather than be put on hold with music, why don't we talk? So he just became friendly with this girl. She was like 22, Rhea Burkus. And he ended up saying that he would take her to Hollywood parties, and they didn't date. He just was like friendly. He was out in LA doing a lot of filming, and he didn't know anyone. So he hung out with Rhea, and she told me that one day he said, you know, she was working in a furniture store, and he said, how you doing? She said, I'm fine. And he says, well, you know, nice Jewish girls don't work in furniture stores. And he said, you tell me all these funny things. We laugh all the time. You should be a writer. She said, what are you talking about? I don't know how to write. And she ended up, he went to her house, and he said, you're going to sit down. I'm not leaving. You're going to spend the next 2 hours, and you're just going to write something funny. Just write something that comes into your mind. And he kept working on it with her, and she wrote it, and then he'd come over again and again. She kept writing, and he eventually said, when it's good enough, I'm going to take it to this sitcom producer I know. And Rhea Burkus ended up writing for Happy Days and for Laverne and Shirley, all because of him.
Wow. We're going to take one last question up there.
If you could ask Chuck anything today, what would it be?
Good question.
What did he think of the film? I want to end on a story that happened recently that's not about this film, but it's so crazy. It's first of all, the thing I love about the Jewish Film Festivals is the people come out who are cinephiles who love to still see movies in a theater. It's very important to me. It's a communal dream almost. It means something. I love the work you guys do. And it's going away. It's just the truth of it. Not blockbuster movies, things like that, but just a lot of moviegoers are not going, especially since COVID. They haven't come back in the numbers that they need. And it's important to keep this stuff going. And so this is a story about the power of film. This is a true story that's so unbelievable, you won't believe it. So that's what an unbelievable story is, you don't believe it. So several months ago, a friend of mine was at a health expo in Los Angeles. Let me preface this. My first film was called Glickman. It was about Marty Glickman, who was a famous New York sportscaster, and he's most known for, one of the many things he was known for was coining the basketball term swish, all right? So my friend's at the health expo, he's in a little kiosk, and he sees these two middle-aged men arguing. And the first guy says, you don't know what you're talking about. Laker announcer Chick Hearn coined the term swish. And the other guy says, you don't know what you're talking about. It was Dick Enberg. And then my friend watched astonished as a tall, skinny man from the Sudan walked over to these two guys and said, excuse me, sirs, but you're both wrong. It was Marty Glickman. My friend, who was stupefied, walks over to the man and he says, excuse me, sir, but how could you possibly know this? And the man said, when I left the Sudan and I moved to America, we settled in New Jersey. And the woman who taught me and my friends English kept showing us this Glickman documentary over and over again so we could learn the language. That's the craziest story about my work I've ever heard by anybody. And that's the power of film. Thank you all for coming. It was a lovely evening.
I want to take, folks, just bear with us one more second. One more comment down here.
Yes, I would like to thank everyone, who's involved in this movie picture here. I remember that day very, very well when my sister-in-law, Elaine Bartlett, got arrested. During that time, my son was born a year before, 1982. And we was having a party for him in 1983. So his birthday is on the 29th, so we couldn't do nothing because my mother-in-law always do something for him on Halloween, so I had to do the next following week. Elaine was supposed to show with her kids, and we was calling and calling and calling. No Elaine. But then when we got the message that she had got locked up, that was the saddest day of all our life. I knew Elaine since 1972. Since 1972, I think I was about 11 years old. I know since 1972. And, we all grew up together. And it just was really kind of hurting to see this happening to her, especially when she had children of her own.
I can't imagine.
But we all was as a family. Her mother took care of her kids, very good care of her kids. And her son, Patchy, he stuck by her from day one, and he was young.
Yeah.
So, Elaine, I'm so happy that you're back home. You've been home for many years.
Thank you.
Okay? And your day's still coming. You're going to be blessed. God have his own timing.
Yes,
And when your time comes, it's going to be worth the time that you served. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Lovely word. I have to say it's very special having Elaine here, and when June Benson was in Washington and when Jan Warren was in L.A., there was a part of me that when they spoke, I said, if I only had made this film for you three women, it would have been worth it, and I feel that way. Thank you again for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you, James.